So this is the Southampton Finance Committee meeting on June 3rd, 2019. Present Gloria and Tom. This meeting is being recorded. So the first thing is always public comment usually. But as you can see, the seats are all empty. So if anybody complains, we have a vacancy as well. They could join us.
Yeah.
So with the first thing we're gonna do is go over the personnel change forms and personal requisition forms. What these are,
I emailed them over, so he didn't get a chance to see them then, because the email didn't go through. That's probably why it didn't go through. I will make sure in the future I will make them less.
These were pictures.
No, it was scanned.
Scans?
Yeah, it was a scan, but I added all these things onto one email, not thinking.
Okay.
And I saw it this morning, and I'm like, okay.
Okay.
That's okay, I probably wouldn't have appreciated 10 emails.
Well, once we get the other email address, that way you can check it on your time and know that
Right.
it's like I have the same thing, it's just the finance committee one.
Okay.
So these are personnel change forms that come through the department heads, they go to the Personnel Policy Procedure Board, and then they come to us, and then they go to selectmen. And so tonight we have a few that were approved the other night at the Personnel Policy Board. It's PPPB.
Right, this is for an auxiliary police officer. Name is Isaac Gomez. It is auxiliary, so it is unpaid. So there's no change to the budget. So we do have a motion and a second, and then
Okay.
approve each one individually as we go. So
Okay.
if you want to review these, you can. There's also a letter from the police chief explaining that the situation.
I'm good.
I make a motion to approve Isaac Gomez.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next one is for Kristen Facto for the, it's a full-time position for the administrative clerk. This is,
She's in the treasurer's office. And Jennifer Day was at the last meeting to explain that this is a raise. And the July 1st budget has already incorporated this raise, but the way she's had some vacancy in her office, that she had room in this budget for the rest of this year, she thinks it'll cost, between the two people that she's giving these little raises to, it's gonna cost $563, and she has $623 left. So it's basically encompassed in her line items that she has right now. So it is an increase, but it's also coming through as July 1st. These people have been seriously underpaid, as she's put it.
right, oh, I agree. Right, so I see, so they're getting a little boost before the fiscal year ends,
Yes.
before the new fiscal year. And I see that, okay, so Art has signed it off, and the treasurer collector has signed it off as well. And the budget's been verified by Vicki as well. Would you like to look it over?
Sure.
Get used to looking at them, so it's so there's a few in the same situation. I see.
Yeah, then also Robin Richard,
Yep.
her assistant treasurer collector, will be encompassed in this.
Yep.
She's lucky she got Robin Richard back. She has experience. She's stepping right back in and helping dig out.
Is this effective date, is that May 20th? Or is that March 20th?
May.
It would be May.
Okay. Okay.
We need a motion.
A motion made to approve Christy Facto, the increase in salary to $16.95.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. So this is the same exact situation with the assistant treasurer collector. That was for Robin Richards. She's full-time, and the changes. It all falls within that same budget, the same.
Yes, in the same calculation. So she still has, like I said, $623
$563.28.
to cover this, just for the May and June.
Okay.
Motion made to approve Robin Richards' increase to $18.99.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Before I forget, later on, we need to talk about meeting times. I know that he was asking about if these were set in 5:30 on Mondays, and so later on, it's new business.
Whatever we agree on.
Yep.
Really.
For new business, make sure I don't forget. Okay, so
Next one is Assistant Town Clerk, Angela Bolduc. It's just going from temporary to permanent positions.
no change in hourly wage, it's just because Lucy is now permanent town clerk.
So they each took a step. Right, no changes. No changes in the rate. Motion?
Motion made to approve Angela Bolduc as assistant
Town Clerk.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
I used to joke, Sharon and I had this science where one would make the motion, the other make the second. The minutes are so much easier when it's the same order.
Oh,
And then every now and then we change it up just a...
So this is the back of, okay, I see. So it's not this one's not
Yeah, so,
two-sided.
yeah, art tips.
Okay. You gotta teach Art how to use the copier.
You forgot to give me one. So the next four people, Judith Pullen, Carol Goulet, Cynthia Lucier, and Barbara Thompson, they're all the same type position, substitute librarian. They're all making $11 an hour. And she wants to put them up to $12 an hour, which equals now minimum wage, but we don't have to follow that. But she wants to give them a $1 raise for these substitute librarians. So if we can vote them all at once, it'd be easier.
We can vote all at once if that's the way we want to do it. So everything, okay, so budget verified. So Vicki has the budget verified as well. So
She has room in her budget,
It's
yeah.
they're gonna stay within their budget?
And I believe, during the budget process, I believe that she planned on paying $12 an hour come July 1st in her budget when Barbara came in.
When does this take effect?
This is effective now.
The date is May 23rd, but I don't know.
I think she's doing it now. May 23rd, 24th?
And they're all as needed basis as far as the part-time goes. On call with no benefits, on call no benefits. So where's the money coming from, I guess?
The library wages, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so they've got,
Oh, okay.
they're at 90% right now, at the end of May.
Okay, so they're down a little bit then.
But I expect they've got some salary that they're gonna have to pay in June.
Correct. Right now, it should be around 92%. Vicky's gonna be in at 6 o'clock, we can just put this one off for 10 minutes.
It's not like it's a set hours
Right.
where it's a certain number. I think it's just as needed.
And they're not gonna be at the same time, there's gonna be one assistant there,
Yeah.
it's gonna be one or the other, so
I was told they would stay in their line item.
they're gonna stay within the line item.
That's the way I was understanding it. It was just as needed people, and she knows what her numbers are.
Yeah, I know she's very good with the budget.
Yeah. And then they can sit there and move money around between the other accounts.
And what about the next year, I
I
guess?
believe if I remember correctly, that.
Were they part of that?
I think it's already up to
2%?
12. They were increased to 12 for next year, if I remember correctly.
I'd feel more comfortable just grabbing Vicky once she comes in.
Yep.
Just to discuss that a little bit, so we'll just move on for, I'll pass this one now. All right, so you can vote on the minutes even though you weren't here. You have a copy of them there. It's pretty cut. I have no problem with the minutes as they're written here. Looked them over before. I'm good.
I'm obviously good with this.
Motion
Did
to
you-
accept the minutes. Oops, go ahead.
Did you guys meet on May 21st?
No.
Okay,
Oh, we canceled that meeting.
okay.
Right.
There was nothing going on, and we rescheduled to this point because we were waiting for Vicky.
That would have been the last meeting before the vote where we'd still,
Right.
we're assured a quorum because we didn't know if we were going to have a quorum or not.
Yeah.
After that vote, so.
See the motion made to adjourn at 10:42 PM.
Town meeting.
Oh, this
No, this was town meeting. We
this
met
was
the
the
half an
town
hour before
meeting.
town meeting, and then we went into town
I
meeting.
see, okay.
Right.
Oh yeah, don't look at that, because no, you're gonna go on the other door.
Honey, wait a minute. Remember what you
They lied to me,
told
they said it was short. No, that was actual town meeting, but we did schedule a meeting just in case, because we had 2 more members still, and then there was nothing to meet about besides minutes, so we waited.
Right.
Okay, so I'm all set.
Motion to accept the minutes.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, so he's putting Sharon.
You. Old business. I don't think we really have any old business, do we?
No.
Nothing going on. New business. Without our 4th member, Pat, I don't know if we should.
That should probably be tabled.
Reorganize at this point. I don't know. I guess what that is, Tom, is the board votes on chair and a clerk. And then if there's also other committees that we sit on as well. Right now, I'm the liaison for the CPC.
Okay.
I'm on PPP.
She's on PPPB. Sharon was on the Hampshire Regional School Committee liaison. The personal procedure and the CPC, those are voting members. At the school committee is not. It's just a sit in and listen type thing. Then there's also one for the Norris School Committee as well, which that wasn't filled. We didn't have.
No.
That wasn't filled. So if any of that interests you, speak up. But we can certainly wait until Pat So if he has a say or wants to, we at least
Okay.
give him the opportunity
Sure.
to say something.
Right.
If he wants one of these positions, he can, you know,
Is that why you set the liaison reports, the 4 of those there, those are the 4 positions you were talking about?
correct,
Okay.
correct,
And you're saying that the first 2 are voting positions and the last 2 are not?
correct,
Okay.
correct. The CPC is the Community Preservation
Mhm.
Committee.
Mhm.
So, and we'd also have to, like I said, reorganize officers.
Okay.
But, you know, I'll say, I don't have a problem doing this, and I would do it again if that's what everybody wanted, but if somebody else wants it, I'll be glad to let them take it over.
No, don't give me.
Gloria.
Don't give me. He's tried. He's tried.
So I'll just throw that out there, and I actually enjoy the CPC, being involved with the CPC. So I would like to stick with that, but
Okay.
if everybody wants, if somebody else wants it and it gets voted that way, I don't hold any grudges, so.
Okay.
The only thing that works with me being on PPV is I can hand off, I take the materials from the meeting to bring it here, but I can still easily follow it from just asking Art or the secretary. Sit there and easily, or we can share all the other ones too, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's quiet right now. But the bigger thing is figuring out what time, does 5:30 work for you on Mondays? Yeah, why was it 5:30 on Mondays?
I don't know. I stepped into it like that.
Yeah, ideally, it's for me, sooner is better, but I don't know how your schedule fits with work and things.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't terrible. I mean, I work down by the airport,
Okay.
so, you know, I left at 4:30-ish today to get up here. I would say, and I know that you don't want to go too late. Mondays is good.
Okay.
I mean, that's a good day for me. I mean, we can. My wife probably would be happier if it was earlier rather than later, so that we can, you know, have dinner together
Sure.
or something.
We still
like
have time for that.
Yeah, especially in the summer, because
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
tonight, where is Vicky? Typically, the meetings go very quickly,
Yeah.
and even during the budget season, the first part, the meetings were an hour or less, and we were out of here.
Uh-huh.
It's not bad. Ideally, 5:30 works for me, but 6 o'clock can work. 5 o'clock, yeah, Mondays I can pull off anything.
Yeah,
I
I
mean-
wouldn't want to do it any earlier.
Yeah, because you're coming from
5:30.
Connecticut, so
Yeah.
if it makes it easier,
Right, now, I don't know what, you know, we don't know what Pat's schedule's like, but we'll have to schedule a meeting, and maybe I'll make a phone call to him and see
Okay.
okay.
what he can make, but,
So 5:30 for me for the next meeting is fine. Like I said, I didn't get any eyebrows raised or any.
Well, I have no problem at that time, for the next one, put it at 6 o'clock, just till we all sit down and talk. Doesn't matter.
I would leave it the way you have it.
Okay.
If 5:30 works for you guys, and
Works for me.
it's working for me right now, so if it doesn't, I can let you know.
so let's just, we want to put another meeting out there then, in 2 weeks maybe?
Well, it'd be nice if Vicky was here. I'm thinking 3 weeks out.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
I mean, it's more dependent on the Personnel Policy Procedure Board and any PCFs that come through. Those are sensitive for timing. And Vicky's gonna be coming up with year-end numbers. I don't think she's gonna have anything really till, as we get closer and closer to the end of the fiscal year.
Well, I'm good with the 24th, if we want to do the 24th.
Yeah.
That's good for me, as far as I know.
We're going 5:30.
The only thing when we decide, if something, I'm just putting it out there, if we decide we want to change it, I have to know by Wednesday, because I have to post it by Thursday. And it's,
It's the Wednesday of the week before.
yeah, because I have to make any changes to the agenda. I can cancel any time, but to
Right.
add a meeting in, you have to do it by Thursday.
Okay.
And
Right,
it was
so many
one of the
hours.
meetings for Hampshire Regional I couldn't go to, I had to stay out of it, because him and Sharon were going, and we couldn't have a quorum, because I couldn't post it, that we were gonna be there.
Right.
And so that's the only thing I've learned, is just any changes, know ahead of time.
Okay.
So if it's something come up where there's really no need for us to meet, and we're thinking we're gonna put it, or if something comes up last minute, we wanna get in there, just make sure we know by Wednesday.
Okay.
good there. All right. So I know we're bouncing around a little bit here, but, so as far as liaison reports, I don't have anything because there hasn't been a meeting. The meeting is Wednesday this week, so.
I had Personnel Policy Procedure Board, and basically it was the CPCs, or PCFs we had.
Pretty much what we just talked about.
Yeah, and then we were discussing about how sick time, vacation time was handled, and they're gonna look at the bylaws for Personnel Policy Procedure Board and just see if there's any wording needed. And Art was gonna send out a note to department heads to ask them, because some people were having issues understanding the language, and that came up at one of the meetings. And beyond that, it was quiet. And obviously, we don't know about Hampshire Regional or Norris.
Right.
When do they typically meet? Do you know when they used to meet? Do they?
It would be on the schedule here.
Hey there, come on in.
Hey. How
Hello.
are you? Do you know Tom?
Hi.
How
I've
are
seen
you?
you at town meetings and you live on my street, so see you walking your dog.
Yeah.
Usually on Sundays when my husband and I take a walk.
Okay. My wife's seen you running.
Probably that's where I was this afternoon, so.
Yeah.
That or in the morning or both. One of the
Not
two.
allowed to anymore. I've been hereby banished from running. I've been told no more, period. Oh well, I'll just wait.
We just had a quick question.
Yeah, certainly.
Here, it's perfect timing. We're looking at the PCF for the libraries. There's 4 of them, and we just, I mean, Gloria seems comfortable with it, but I just didn't know where the money's coming from for the $1 increase on each one. Is it's within her budget?
It's within her budget, correct. It'll only be retro to January because that's when the state law takes effect of increased minimum wage, and that brings that up to minimum wage.
Okay.
But she has it within her budget.
Okay, that's good then. So I thought, I mean, not that I'm against paying minimum wage, I'm certainly not, but I thought that the town municipalities weren't
They don't,
obligated.
they're not obligated,
Okay,
correct.
Okay. Believe me, I'm not against paying them because $11 an hour
So
is
it's
not-
retro to January? They didn't bring that up at the last meeting.
I think Barbara wanted to do it retro to
Oh,
January.
okay. No, I got the impression
But I-
it's just coming through now. In that July was when they were gonna start getting paid $12 an hour.
Right, this is,
This is just to finish off this fiscal year, I thought.
yes.
But I didn't recognize it as retro to January.
I'll have to double check with her, but I thought that's what the discussion was that her and I had, but I'm trying to remember.
But she'll still fit in the budget, going back to January. There must not be many hours then.
Correct, because she
Can't
has,
be many, yeah.
she has money because of the, when she budgets like the maximum amount of substitutes that she can, based on vacations that people have, and sometimes she doesn't always use the substitutes, hours. But yeah, I think the discussion we had, I'm trying to remember, it was that she was gonna go back to January. Because next year, we can't do, well, July will be $12, but then once January rolls around, I think she's gonna try to do the next,
The 13?
the 13, correct. I mean, because you can go work at Big Y for $12 an hour.
Yeah, no.
And I don't know why they excluded municipalities. I think
Yeah.
that's kind of ridiculous.
It is.
Well, myself, but as long as so they're excluded. We don't have to do it. We can if we choose to, but there's also a regulation in there that we can accept it, which means we would have to pay them that, but I don't know that we did. Because when Heather was here, she was against it, and I'm like, why? It's only $10. Like, it's only $10. So, I mean, I think it's the right thing to do, whether that town accepts it or not, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
we'll see, but,
If it's within her budget, I have no problem.
Yeah, no, it's just we wanted to see.
yeah, it's within her budget.
Okay.
One thing about Barbara is that she doesn't usually ask for something unless she's figured out that she can put it in her budget.
And then she brings all her people to the meeting and
Yep.
make sure she's good. She's
And
good.
well, and she figures it all out.
Yeah,
and
she did.
She wouldn't ask, and she would be like, oh, here, I want to do this, without knowing that it
Yeah.
fit into her budget first.
Yeah, she's great.
That's kind of
Yeah.
how Barbara works.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
So,
Okay, back to
motion-
this. Do you want a motion to accept all 4 of these then?
Yes, a motion made to accept Judith, Carol, Cynthia, and Barbara's increase to $12 an hour.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
So I should say congratulations, welcome.
Actually, he had a question. Do you want
Yes.
to ask that question now while he's signing? About the warrants and the articles?
Yeah, one thing, and I'm assuming there's nothing that can be done about it, but I'd say half of the town meetings are, at least half of the warrants are to move monies around. And many of them are things that are with like a few $1,000s, even a couple $100s or $20. And so my question is there any discretion, or is there a vehicle that this could be done without having to be voted on?
Not until May 1st. So anything that we want to transfer between budget line items has to go to
Yeah.
town meeting up until May 1st. So May 1st to July 15th, which is why I'm here, I can put together transfers between line items as long as the finance committee and the select board approve them. That is what DOR regulations are,
So,
to go for a year end, purposes. But throughout the regular year, it has to go to town.
so you're saying it's a state regulation that you're going to transfer between, is it between different accounts or?
Any transfers. From
Any.
Yes.
Any transfer has, even if it's like $5, it's got to go.
Yep.
Is the understanding it's because the townspeople have voted these budgets, these line items, and
Yes.
that's why? Yeah.
And then usually they give you provisions at the end of the year, because, it's a budget, and so people take their best guesstimate, and
Right,
I think
sure.
I'm going to spend this much money in this line, but really something happened and they need more money in another line item
Right.
in order to pay for. And since you'll notice on here,
Yeah.
the fire chief had to put a new boiler in. And so now he's going to take money from another line to pay for that boiler.
Right.
So those types of things the state allows you to do per their regulation at the end of the year, because we can't overspend our budget because it's illegal.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's hard when it's like $5, and so if it's something that's small dollar amounts, usually I just let it go. If it's something like, for instance, insurance, because we have to pay insurances. So if the insurance is over, or software is over because you got a quote from the company, or you anticipated what you thought you were going to pay next year and it was, $10, $20, $100 over, I'll usually leave that till the end of the year. Sometimes I'll clean them up right away just because people keep asking questions like, why is it over? Why is it over? Why is it over?
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't usually put those in town meetings because it's $100 is really, it'll get cleaned up at the end of the year anyway, but it's something that you have to pay. You don't necessarily, we got to pay our liability insurance. We don't have a choice,
Yep.
so.
Yep.
But yeah, those are, it seems kind of trivial, but it's kind of how it works.
Yeah, the way it's set up. I was trying to explain, 'cause when I worked in the town accountant's office, I can remember that really you have no choice when you're moving between different funds and then different line items.
Yeah.
Like PEG programming, I know that there's always but, okay. Yeah, I just, it's, those meetings can go rather long, and it's,
At the last one, I was like, please just sit down. We're voting everything unanimously. Just let us do it.
yeah.
It's 10:15. Just sit down.
Yeah, once you get to that end and it's that late, people are just like, just whatever, we want to get out of
It
here.
tended to be at the last meeting, really, it was only the CP, the 2%, change it from 3% to 1%. That was a discussion. And what was the other one? And everything else
The
was quiet.
land,
Right.
the land purchase.
Yep.
And then it was really quiet.
Water kind of came up as a bone of contention with people.
Yep.
Needless to say, John Martin forgot that Charlie snuck in big raises 2 years ago, and he voted yes to put them back in, so.
Oh, you're talking about the water commissioner?
Yes.
Yes.
Combining the two line items?
No, his.
No, it's always said salaries, and the total isn't any different, but they did give him a larger raise, and But they seem to forget that that happened 2 years ago also. And Finance Committee took it out. A few select board members put it back in. They voted yes, they wanted to go to town meeting, and the Finance Committee gave them a whole new budget. Because they said that's not what we recommended.
Yep.
And they kept them in there, so.
Was that when the Exodus happened?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. Anyway,
Okay.
All right, what do you got for us there, Vicki?
so I am here because I have some transfers.
If you have one extra one, I'll give it to the other member when I send in the paperwork.
So basically what I do, just to kind of refresh, is that at the end of the year, every I probably do it 2, 3, 4 times depending on what the need of the town is. I come to you guys with a spreadsheet that says this is what we're short in this account and we need to replenish it with funds from these accounts. And then the select board has to vote yes also. So normally when there's something that is short, I try to transfer money within the same group of accounts. And then if we can't, which is usually at the very last one, which will be first week of July probably, it comes from wherever you can pull it. You know, wherever that there might be. Like Jen and I were talking today, the treasurer, her insurances are going to be short. So those are going to be big sums of money. So once you get to that point when she knows how much it is, we're going to be pulling it from other places because there's no other insurances that are going to be short, you know, that are going to be unspent to pull it from.
Yep.
So those type of things. So I usually go through this and kind of give an explanation of, you know, what is what. So the first one on here is the PEG programming, speaking of PEG programming. The way we used to do PEG programming before was we had this account where we would have to go to town meeting, kind of like ambulance fees, where we would have to transfer it at town meeting in order to pay ECAT. We get the money from the cable company. They send us 16, 17 grand. And we adopted, the state said you had to do one of 2 things. You can either put it in this account or you can put it in an enterprise fund, kind of like water, which makes no sense. So we put it in this other receipts reserved for appropriation account. But those always have to be transferred at town meeting. So we would get the money, like September, October, we wouldn't have a meeting till January. They wouldn't get paid, even though it's just kind of an in and out. So I talked to the auditors last year, and for 19, we decided that we would just put it in our budget as an expense and put it in our budget as a revenue. So it's kind of a wash.
In and out, yep.
In and out. So basically, every quarter, we get a check from Charter, we deposit the check, and then ECAT sends us the bill for the exact amount of whatever that check is. When we did the budget for 19, it was based on previous years, and you know, the first time trying to figure out how much did you pay in each fiscal year, because it was in an account where if you paid it for July, but it was for for June, it didn't matter because it didn't have any limits, because it was a special revenue fund. So it's hard to gauge on how much we should put in there. So that's why we put that extra $17,000 based on what we think we were gonna get from cable. Well, it ends up being that we were short in anticipation of how much, bless you, how much the cable company was gonna give us from those 2% charges on our cable bill.
Pretty close though.
Yeah, it's pretty close. So they're going to be short $359.88. And Ed said, you can take it from my admin assistant wages, because he didn't hire Judy until, after
He's got some
the
surplus.
fiscal year started, so those some surplus there. The next 2 line items belong to the elementary school. So vocational tuition is going to be underspent by about $55,000. Some of that is based on the kids that actually went to school there, and some of that is based on when they do a budget for the sped costs, they base it on an average of $2,500 per student. So it's like $55,000 we budget for. But when we get the actual bills, the bills are only 18, 19, 20. One year it was 39, one year it was 25. But we don't really have, because it's based per service now. They go on per service, what the kids need. So there's always money left in vocational tuition from the sped cost, and then there's also money left from kids that didn't end up attending, or they came partway through the year. So the vocational tuition, I'm going to give some to the elementary school, because in order for us to meet net school spending for Norris, which is what the state says we have to spend on the school,
Yep.
we have to keep part of that in the elementary school in order to keep that number up. Because for whatever reason, Norris and Smith Volk are hooked together for that number, which is crazy. And then the local transportation is going to be short, because partway through the year, which we didn't budget for because we didn't know these kids were coming to Norris, or they determined partway through the beginning of the year that they needed to go out for services. And so this is part of the sped bus that needs to take them to White Oak or whatever. There's whatever other learning disability schools that these kids go to. So it wasn't in the budget originally.
So the 25,000 and the 30,000, those are both solid numbers? That's going to be enough?
Yep.
And there could be extra there as
There
well?
could be extra in vocational
Which
tuition
could-
besides the
could come back.
55. Correct, that could come back, correct.
Okay.
But those were the amounts that, when I talked to Bobby, that they would need, to cover the transportation and to put some back into net school spending so that we wouldn't go under that threshold. Gas and electric from town hall is going to be short about $2,500. I'm not so sure that we're getting a whole lot of discounts from the net metering credits.
Yeah, I was going to ask about how that's...
We have some, but I put together a spreadsheet, and I guess 20% is 20%. But when the library saves $3 over the course of the year, I mean,
Doesn't sound like 20%.
doesn't sound like 20%. You know what I mean? So,
So who is supposed to be looking over that? So it doesn't, next year we're not going saying the same thing.
well, because we signed a 20-year contract with
Right,
these people.
exactly.
So I need to present that information to Ed and the select board to say, look,
Right.
we might want to rethink these net metering credits. I
Right.
mean, we've saved $7,700 year to date for the town, which isn't really,
How much have we spent though?
that's what we
need to figure out.
Well, no, that's what we saved after we paid the net metering credits. That's what we've gotten credits for the year.
Yeah.
Is $7,700. Most of it goes to the well, because that's the biggest consumer of that.
Electricity.
The other piece about the electricity is we get our delivery service from Hampshire Council of Governments, which is getting out of the electric business, because they're going belly up and they're selling their building and all that. So I don't know how that's going to affect our contract with, well, obviously the contract's going to be null and void, and whether we will find another source, like we use NG one year, GDF Suez, which we saved a little bit of money, but not as much as I thought we would have saved. So anyway, and if it's a colder winter, we have more that we pay HG&E, or during the summertime, if we have used the air conditioner longer, like now it's on a lot, so that will cover the last couple of months, the last 2 months of bills, because there's some money in there. This will just cover that last month. And then Barnes Aquifer, they dissolved,
They're
we don't
coming
need that,
out,
so
right.
I took that $2,000, and then I took the rest from admin assistant wages, because there was quite a bit in there. Photocopier lease and supplies, we just need money for the last month of June. There is probably $142 in there. And on average, if you take the average of what we spent year to date, it's like $322. Could be plus or minus, depending on how many copies they make.
The overage?
The overage, correct. So, 200, 342 should be, and we bought paper in April, because we buy paper out of that account number. We should be we should be okay unless we're making tons of copies for something, but town meeting is over, so we don't need those copies.
Yep.
And that's gonna come from admin assistant wages, because there's, you know, four some odd $1,000 in there that she won't be using. Machinery and maintenance. So Randall had to get the town's sweeper repaired,
Oh, thank God.
which $13,000 is quite a bit of money. That piece
I
of
was upset.
I know, that piece of equipment is 1996, I think, and they've already repaired it for tens of thousands of dollars in other years, so I'm not quite sure why they didn't buy a new sweeper instead of a new mower or a new chipper, but
How much does a sweeper go for, I wonder?
I don't know.
It's gotta be expensive.
Yes.
I mean, because the
I
chipper
don't
was
know that.
$44,000, the mower was $62,000.
But they didn't spend them on the.
They didn't spend the mower, correct, we put it back so that he could allocate it to something
Yeah.
else.
And the sweeper's kind of needed.
Yeah, or you do a service,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, he had to get that repaired.
Interesting to see the difference in the, you know, the service cost versus the purchase cost, because you only use it for a month, 1 month out of the year, pretty much,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then it sits there and,
And the current one's what, 94 or
I
96?
think 96, I think it was
Yeah.
96. I'm not positive, but I think it was 96.
I'm sure on one of the spreadsheets he sent over to us previously with the equipment listing. I would just,
Yeah.
I know that I was, every now and then on Facebook, it's people are going nuts, where's the sweeper? I'm like, seriously, people?
Well, you know, like my street, Pomeroy Meadow, down by my house is not, I mean, there's like this much sand. And not only, not so much the sand, but the drains are all blocked
Yeah.
off.
On Maple Street, it's bad because just the way the road's set up, and if you're going down it, if you're running or walking down it, you're slipping in it because it's a hill.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit, but yeah, I don't worry so much about the sand, because whatever, I can run in the sand or on the sidewalk, but it's when those drains are all
Yeah.
plugged up with stuff.
They took care of Maple Street a few weeks ago.
another expense.
Yeah, so he has money in general highway, this is kind of where he wants to take it from, you know, in order to get that repaired. So the next is the fire chief. I should make a copy for you guys, because he sent me his little explanation, all the stuff that he was gonna move around.
Okay.
So they haven't actually spent this money yet?
No.
Okay.
Well, some of it.
Well, some of it in
Right.
terms of, when you see the list for the fire chief, the money for the boiler has already been spent,
Sure, okay.
which kind of slipped through the cracks, and we were gonna go to town meeting, and then we paid for it, and so we kind of just left it there at that point.
Okay.
But,
Well, that's fine.
yeah, the rest of it hasn't been spent yet. It's anticipation of
This month.
this next month of June.
Okay.
All right, so let me make a copy of these for you guys.
Kind of tough to lose the boiler in one of your buildings and then have to wait to go to a town meeting to get the funds to go pay for it.
Especially in a firehouse where if it
Why?
freezes, you're gonna be in big trouble.
Yeah.
Frozen fire engines don't usually work so well. And they're expensive to repair.
So how do they do something like that when you have an, well, I guess I'll wait till she comes back, when you have an immediate maintenance need that needs to be taken care of? Now, I guess
Some
if-
things
I
they can
guess if it's
overspend knowing they
earlier-
have to look for other sources to cover it, and
If it's-
Hope Town's meeting covers it.
If it's earlier in the year, then that's not a problem. Vicki, do they, I mean, like, this one here that we're gonna talk about, do they budget? They certainly budget a certain amount of maintenance expenses for the buildings, right? Because I see here,
Should be 12.5.
705?
Yeah.
Yeah, 12.9.
But what happens is it always gets cut. So they put money in anticipation for doing something, and that's one of the first places that's,
Okay.
Well, we tried doing that with Finance Committee, putting the extra, we had the little, what, 12,000 or 10,000 into reserve fund for Finance Committee
Yep.
for the building, and then
Yep.
the selectmen took it.
yes.
So if this was going to be a town meeting, so when did this thing, okay, so let's say that this boiler went out in February. Would they have just looked at this and says, well, actually they would have said, okay, this is actually more money than what we It's more money than what we had budgeted for the entire year. Would they have had to go to town meeting to get the approval to go do that? Or is there some sort of discretionary approval that somebody can give them to go get that emergency repair done immediately?
No, because you're not allowed to overspend your budget. But part of me is if it, originally he went and had a quote and brought it to Ed, and it was supposed to be in the February town meeting to transfer the money to get the work done. Well, somehow it never ended up on the town warrant. And so he brought it to me to pay, and he didn't know that it wasn't on the warrant.
Okay.
And we were gonna hold it until we went back to town meeting.
Right.
But we ended up paying it.
Okay.
So, and then he went to Capital Improvement Committee to get capital money to pay for it. And I said, well, wait a minute, why don't we, if you have enough money, look at your budget, and if you have enough money to transfer within your line items,
Right.
then why don't we do that instead of taking money out of capital?
Okay.
Because he usually has money left in his standby wages, because he has, the EMT and the fire wages kind of full term, full time over there, and so he doesn't really need, next year he took the budget down for EMT wages, standby wages, but he wasn't sure how that was going to all play out with the first full year of a full staff.
Right. Okay.
But no,
sometimes, now, I guess this must not have been something that had to have been done immediately, but sometimes things have to be done. You can't wait a couple weeks or a month.
yeah, it's a tough, sticky situation, because if they don't have enough money in their budget to pay for it, I can't legally pay for it,
Yeah.
because you can't overspend. Now, having said that, if something happened and it was like dire straits, I probably would pay for it, but then I would hold back bills from other accounts that they had and not pay them. They would have to make sure they left money
Right.
in another account to transfer at the end of the year.
Okay. Okay.
As long as it's covered by the end of the year, I try to kind of work with people, if that's the case.
Common sense.
And that's why if you had money in the reserves, they could come to you
Right.
for that, for those non-expected expenses that
There
happen.
really is no buffer.
No, and we used to have 40 grand in there when I first started. Then it went to 30, then it went to 10, then it went to 5. It's at 0, which I think is foolish.
Yeah, I think so. But
Because then in the case of a bill for $100 we could have taken care of, now it's gonna have to.
Or even, $1,000,
Yeah.
that's an emergency, like you said,
We just got highway
that's,
department this year, so.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they would have to potentially pay that bill out of another, if they have more than one expense line, which Randall did the beginning of the year, well, not the beginning of the year, but
The
2
bigger
or 3
budgets
months
too.
ago,
Bigger-
the bigger budgets,
The-
he had money in general highway. It's not technically a general highway expense. It should be machinery maintenance, but he paid it out of there, and then once the money was transferred, I moved the expenses so that when we track it, we'll be able to track it, and you're not looking at an inflated road machinery maintenance or general highway, and people think, well, he doesn't really need it. When he did, he just, we just moved it around. And if they have bigger budgets, it's easier to do that. Like my budget, I don't have that much money, so I can't, certain departments don't have that much money, they can't if they have an emergency, but I don't know what I would really need that, if my computer breaks and we have a town fund for computers, that kind of thing. So the fire chief sent me this today, and this is well within his budget, and he should have other monies left over that he would give back to the town at the end of the year. The first thing he would like to do is transfer money from his EMS wages to his building expenses. One is to cover that $8,000 for the boiler replacement, and he needs his roof repaired, and he also needs another door per OSHA standards, which, you know, before municipalities were not regulated by OSHA, but now they have new standards with highway, police, and fire that they have to abide by.
It's
And
like
they,
raising squirrels.
yes,
Thing.
yeah. So they need to have another door that they can get out of, and it can't be the door that rolls up in the front.
Yeah.
And so they need to be able to, do all that repairs to that building, which is, you know, approximately $23,000. Then he wants to move $7,000 to EMS expenses. You know, $5,000 for medical supplies to re-equip the ambulances with. They have to re-establish those supplies every year. And then he's looking for some materials for a stop bleeding program for the school, you know, to get trained on shooter training, which kind of sad, but
Is that something they already did, or are they going to do?
no, they're going to do, yeah. You know, like the police department had bought some ballistic shields, some rifles for that type of incident. A battering ram they bought one year so they could, not that the doors work at North since they need to be fixed.
This is very sad that we're having these conversations now.
It is.
Especially after seeing the news last week. I'm like, oh, seriously.
Oh, I know, was it Virginia?
Yeah.
Oh, Newport Beach, yeah.
Virginia Beach.
Virginia Beach. It was somewhere.
One question is the $5,000 in medical supplies, could that be coming from the monies they're getting in from the ambulance runs? Not saying that I'm against him moving around, but at this point I know when the ambulance runs and they're using the supplies and they're collecting.
What, yeah, I see what you're saying.
You could, but you'd have to go to town meeting to transfer those monies.
Yeah, we'll just do it this way.
And right now, the money, you could do that. That is a legal expense, because when we voted that, it was for any.
If they couldn't make it happen out of their budget, then we still have that avenue, because
Yeah.
you have to have ambulances stocked.
Yep. And they do get some of their medication from Cooley Dick for free, but not all the stuff that they need. So then he doesn't need all this money in his standby account, which he did take down for this year's budget. And so he did should be $12,500. So $5,500, $3,000 is they need to replace the radios. If you've ever heard them over the radio, it's like talking on a crackling phone. You can't hear anything. And then the police department is going to buy an AED, and the fire department is going to buy a new AED. They're going to
AED?
Defibrillator.
Defibrillator.
Oh, I see, okay.
And so the police department did get some money because Todd Jaraz's dad passed away, and people donated it to buy it, and company donated money to buy an AED, which they are going to keep in the police vehicles. So the fire department is going to buy the other one and give it to the police department so they can keep them in their trucks. And then they're going to take the old one and just put it in the fire truck. You know, so they'll still have it and they'll be able to use it. Which I think is a good, collaboration. So then $7,000 he wants to move to fire expenses. He needs a new server, which is what we're up against, and the police department just went through theirs. And he needs to replace 2 nozzles on the engines. And then the last piece is he had transferred money or had money in his budget from ambulance maintenance, but now he realizes with the new ambulance, the old ambulance, knock on wood, isn't needing as much maintenance as he thought, but the fire truck is needing maintenance. So it's just between those 2 line items too. So that's where, that's why I figured I'd just give you this instead of type a big long piece.
Yeah, no, this works.
He's usually pretty good, and Ian is usually pretty good about
Yes,
like
I've been-
spelling out what they need and where they're going to move it to.
Yes,
So with the fire department, when I talked to him today, he said that he would also, there's probably still going to be a little bit of money left that the town will, end up putting back into free cash. So, so that's what I have for now.
Okay.
So then I will get this on the agenda for the select board, their next meeting, which will be
2 weeks.
the 11th. No.
They're not meeting tomorrow? I know you can't do it for tomorrow.
Yeah,
but-
no, they're not meeting tomorrow, next week, next
Okay.
Tuesday. And then after that, I'll have probably 2 more, maybe, depending on what people,
Just let us know, we're planning a meeting on the 24th.
okay,
Again,
well, that will be good.
Okay.
so.
And then the last one will be July, that week of July 4th. Or we might have to meet on the 15th, because I'm gone from July 6th through the 11th. And I'm going to be in the Grand Canyon, so I'm not really coming back to do this.
Fine, I don't get it. So the week of July 15th, you want us to have
Well,
it?
the 15th is the last day that you can do it.
Because if you're coming back on the 11th, so do you want us to do the meeting?
So I was thinking before, but I don't know what I'm gonna have. I don't know, like earlier, we need to do insurances.
Let's
So we'll just wait and see
Yeah,
what we
we'll
might
regroup
need.
on the 24th.
The
and see
24th
if
might
we-
be it too, you never know.
Yep,
You
okay.
know?
Okay.
Okay.
July 4th is on a Thursday this year. Okay.
Yeah, so those are the other things that might need some, like legal expenses. I mean, there's 14,000, I don't know, the bill we just have, I don't know if that's from April, because sometimes we're like a month and a half behind. I'm not quite sure, Lucy mentioned something about maybe needing transfer for having to print up those extra ballots for the election.
Yeah, I wondered where that was gonna,
And
You come
well, the
back
extra
anyway.
ballots, not the special election, which is gonna come from here, but she had to reprint the ballots because the names were not alphabetical. And the person running decided they wanted them reprinted. So that was $2,000.
It matters? Okay. No, I didn't know if they're legally, is there any, or it's just because someone,
Legally, they should be alphabetical unless there's an incumbent, but the person who's running can say, yeah, no, it's fine, whatever, I don't really care.
yeah.
So, yeah.
So on the actual expenses for the fire building expense, it says that the budget was 12.9 and they spent 20K so far. That doesn't include any of this?
No. Yes, it does. It includes the $8,000 for the boiler.
Okay. And then what about other places where it's over 100%? How do you handle that? Like, yeah.
Before we get too far off track, can,
Oh, we want to vote on it?
yeah, can we just vote on this? And then
Sure.
that way this will go away.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we can go.
a motion made to approve the proposed budget transfers as detailed out?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Do we have to sign something? or-
No, I just, yeah.
Okay.
It'll be in your minutes, right? So that's
Yeah.
fine. No,
Yes.
but you can keep those if you want. And usually I try to send these to you ahead of time, but he gave these to me later on. I said, well, I want to make sure I include these, because that way, his thing will be all done. I don't think the police chief's gonna have much, but I'm not sure.
Okay. So back to Tom then.
So if you are already at 100%,
Uh-huh.
and it doesn't, when Joyce enters the bills, it will come up that it's already spent, or when she enters the invoice, it'll say it goes negative, and she puts it aside. If it's a couple of dollars, we'll usually put it through, and then, we'll maybe do a transfer for a few dollars at the end of the year if it's something that, needs to get paid. But normally, we'll put that aside, and we don't pay it until we do a transfer.
So like if I'm looking at the school funds for 22, now, the budget.
Page 5.
Page 5. And I'm just picking this, and it's really more just for my edification.
That's okay.
So certainly,
Oh, I need to fix
the
this.
the money that's been spent overall to date is less than what the budget was. because you had a $286,000 positive balance on it. But some of these are, 366%, 1,700%.
This is a different funding source, isn't it?
Are those
Yes.
going to end up being transfers within this account then to get everything to even out?
Most of those are grants that we get from the state. And so what happens is they're reimbursable. The school spends the money first, they send the information to the state, then they send us the money.
Okay.
And so when the school gets the money, some of it comes directly to us, and some of it, the school gets it and they send us a check. So all these will be in the positive by the year end, because I work with the business manager up there, and sometimes if, she'll look at the details of these and say, yeah, well, this probably shouldn't have been charged there, it should have been charged here. So we go through and reconcile all the school accounts.
Okay.
Now, the only one that might be negative, and it probably shouldn't be this year, is the school lunch. Because that's based on what we get from the state for free and reduced lunch and the federal government and what we've collected. And so if people aren't paid, which usually they're pretty well, they have to be paid by the end of 6th grade, sometimes there's a deficit in there. But it should be, Liz and I went through that, and it should be pretty on track.
So you're saying that by the year-end close, then, all these accounts really should be 100% or less?
Correct. If they are in the negative, what happens is...
Do you do one of these things?
Nope, only for the first 4 pages.
Okay.
The rest of it, if it's in the negative, if we're not anticipating money back from a grant for reimbursement, then it comes off of our free cash.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's why, people who have accounts in these other funds that aren't done by a budget that the town presented and voted on, they need to make sure that their monies aren't, that we need to account for somehow. So like if you look at this page 7, and there's $400,000.
That's also on the list.
So that's gonna be
Right.
reimbursable. So that would be a reimbursable grant, but we aren't gonna get that money by June 30th. So the treasurer has to borrow that money to cover that deficit, so that we don't get charged on our free cash, which would probably wipe it all out, before we get the grant money, because we won't get that in by June 30th. So any grant thing that's grant funded, I will go through and either submit all the paperwork to get that money back, and usually, as long as we get it back by September 30th, we don't need to cover it, but this is such a large amount of money that, I called them and asked them for their guidance, and they said I would borrow it, because if you
Yeah, it's a
don't
big
happen
number.
to get it, because something happened, then we don't have any free cash to do anything with, and you don't really get that back.
Right.
They take that off of our free cash. We get the reimbursement, great. We're still out $400,000. So, yeah, so anything that has a zero budget that has spending is stuff that we would need to get reimbursed from the state on, or wherever the funding source is, whatever type of grant it is.
So police outside details in a negative of 53,000, is that because
That's
contractors
because-
haven't paid them?
Correct.
Right.
And so by the end of the year, as long as we can show that those bills were from the last couple of weeks in June, and we wouldn't have gotten paid for them by the end of June, the state lets that go. Really, we shouldn't be paying them until we get paid by the contractor. That's what it says in their contract.
I think Hadley just put that notice out to us, and everyone else saying that the police officer won't get paid until you pay us.
That's how it should work.
It makes sense, it just kind of pushes you along.
And that's because what happens is
Yeah,
that if
that's
that
the
doesn't
number.
get paid, my taxes have to pay for that. It has nothing to do with me. It's Eversource
Yeah.
didn't pay my bill, pay their bill,
Right.
and I gotta pay for it.
So construction company? or-
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So that one is one that Jen and I were talking, and treasurer, and because it says it in their contract, once they get that new contract, because we're working on negotiations. If it's still in there, we're gonna change the way we do it. We have to, you know, because they're getting $2,500,
Yep.
you know, each pay period for doing, you know, detail work. And if we don't get paid, guess what? Well, you and I, as taxpayers, have to pay for that.
Especially like
Yep.
the Glendale Road down there, that big project. And my husband's asking, why is there a police officer at both ends? Because it's needed.
Well, because it's at an intersection, you have to have it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if it wasn't, it wouldn't matter.
Oh, no, we pay a lot at my work for outside detail, so we're used to it. Anytime you're near the road.
Yeah, I mean, they couldn't use flagmen because they asked that question, because literally no one can go down the road.
Right.
Like, it's all blocked off. And I feel bad for them partly because they're standing down there, it's pouring rain, and they're pretty bored.
Yeah.
I see them coming out of my house every day because I live right on the corner there, and,
Yeah.
but yet, you're getting paid 50 some odd bucks. I'd stand in the rain for a day to get paid
Yeah.
$400, you know what I
Right.
mean? Anyway.
Okay.
So, yeah, we, you know, if the deficits aren't covered by a grant that we are anticipating to get, then we eat that money, the town eats that money. So that's why we, you know, I try to keep close tabs on that.
Do we ever go after that?
Is there any way to,
Does it happen a lot, and is it,
No, most of it is just timing issue, which usually works out okay.
Yeah.
The school lunch one was a problem one year because we used to pay the monitors that are in the cafeteria out of school lunch funding, and we weren't supposed to. And so they were negative because they were never, you know, you're talking 13 or 14,000 bucks a year to have them stand and watch the kids, make sure they throw their stuff away, peel their apples, not jumping off tables. And they weren't supposed to be being paid out of there. And so they switched the budget to the regular school department, but the town covered that, whatever, $7,400 loss at one point. I mean, there was one town, I think it was Granby, they had like almost $200,000 in school lunch deficit. I'm like, how do you let it get that big?
yeah,
Like, how does that happen?
it's crazy.
It's not like you wake up one day and there's $200,000 on your books. And you look and you think, okay, is it a timing issue? Does she not turn the receipts in? You know, that kind of thing, so. But we, luckily enough, we need to put the onus on the police department to collect those bills. I mean, last year Mike sent out second and third notices from people who owed us from previous years, and they paid. They just kind of slipped
Yeah,
through the
sometimes
cracks.
they just have to be reminded when they're
Yeah.
busy and.
Yeah. So we were able to collect some of that money. Now they're fighting with Eversource for that big windstorm we had. They don't want to pay us. So, I mean, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars.
So what now, can Ian say, if they call for detail and they say, nope,
He can say no, correct? I don't know what him and Ed are working with Eversource about it, but he mentioned it to me, and
now
they can say no.
Can Eversource go to another, to somebody
Yes.
else?
You
Yep,
can pull in other towns,
yep.
Yeah,
but if they're not paying us, they're not gonna pay the other ones too.
because then we
Of
lose
course.
also, because we collect, what, 10% of that as a town?
Administrative fee?
We get some
We do
percentage
get
of that.
20, I think it's 10, I don't, I
I
have
thought it
to
was
look at the bill.
10%.
I'm
but
not sure.
I could be wrong, pulling up.
Yeah, we get administrative fees. Sometimes they pay for the cruiser because the cruiser's sitting on the side of the road or whatever, so.
You gotta pay somebody to chase them for the money.
I know.
Will we see, at the end of the fiscal year, will we see another one of these?
We send them out twice a month,
Okay.
at the 15th and 30th. Sometimes we'll hold up because we know, like if the 30th or the 15th is on a Monday and we know we're posting bills on Thursday, we might
Sure.
wait till the Thursday to send it to you guys.
Okay.
I typically try to ask a few days before the meeting for the most recent one.
I know, and I have to add you to the list that Joyce has.
That'd, yeah, be helpful.
Because you're not in the departments, because she usually sends it to departments, and then has a list of other people, so I'll have to have you added to that list. But, so sometimes we try to wait a few days, because we know payroll's being posted, or expenses are being posted, so that people get the most especially now.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Because, in July, you're not really looking at much. Even
Right.
October, you're not really looking at much. But now, April, May, and June, there's a lot that goes
hits.
through, so.
Yep.
No, understood. So yeah, if you can add the FinCom to
Yes,
the
yeah,
list,
yeah,
that way I
yeah.
don't have to keep bugging you.
No, that's okay. It always is a good reminder, so. Hi.
You can sit here early for the next week.
Oh, yeah, it's 7 o'clock meeting.
Yeah, we're done, I
Okay,
think.
good.
Unless, if you're done.
No, I'm good, I'm good.
Thank
I
you for
could probably
everything.
sit here all day and explain this to you, but.
No, it was perfect timing because he had good questions that actually I
Yep.
gained from too, so perfect timing.
Yeah, and always, if you look at it and you don't get something, email me. I'll be more than happy to look it up, answer it, whatever.
Motion made to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Usually I can probably tell you off the top of my head what's in those accounts.
Well, yeah, because you lit it.
Pretty much.
That's how it is with my work. I know my numbers and everywhere forward. The accountant
Yeah.
calls me, I know, but yeah.
Now, where do you work?
Deeds construction.
Okay.
So yeah, understand numbers and budgets and